Alright, so now we're going to look at the gold standard of automation. And this is the gold standard of automation, in my humble opinion. You go into a room, the lights go on. Okay? You're in that room, the lights stay on. You could sit down, relax, whatever, the lights stay on. When you leave the room, the lights go off. Alright. So what about like when you sleep? Right? Okay, that's a different story altogether. But let's cover first. Let's cover first the idea that you have an area of your house, not your bedroom. Let's go to an area of your house that, let's say, my lab. My lab, I want to go down in my room, work in my lab, lights go on, I work in my lab, lights stay on, and when I leave my lab, the lights go off. Okay? We'll cover bedroom later. That's kind of trickier, but it can be done. So I do have the laundry room. Okay? We're going to look at the laundry room in this example. In this laundry room, I have a passive infrared sensor. Okay? I have a presence sensor. I have a light. This one right here. By this being on, it's actually off, and off being on. Just know it's backwards. Reason for that is there is a relay in it. Okay? And the relay is kind of like rigged up in such a way that if an emergency happened, I can still have this light automatically turn on. It's kind of like a secondary way of controlling it. Let's say the internet goes down, or let's say I just really need to get down there and Home Assistant fails. This relay is set up in such a way that it has a back door to it. So that's the only thing about this relay. It's a little bit different. Besides that, it does have what I want to do is just go downstairs, have that click off, which is on. That's what's hard to explain. And then stay on until I leave the laundry room. Cool. My basement is also broken up into kind of a zone. Okay, so I got my laundry room, I got like this middle area, and then I got this back lab. And it all kind of flows together. So this one would be my first one that goes on when I go downstairs. But the whole automation is my whole zoning of my basement. We won't cover that. We'll just look at a very small example of this laundry room. So, what we're first going to look at is the fact that we need a timer. Okay? So, you can see that there's a laundry lights on, and it's on idle. When I walk down there, there is kind of like this timer that goes on. Okay? The timer is being dictated by the passive infrared sensor triggering. And then it gives me, let's say, 13 minutes. I can wander around, I can do anything I want for about 13 minutes. When I leave, the lights will go off. Now that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is you could have your presence sensor dictate there's nobody in the room. Therefore, it's going to be turned off. I like to have both of these things work. Okay? Because there are times when a presence sensor actually fails. A lot of times, actually. Even the best ones. And I got a pretty good one. This one is like pretty sweet. And it still fails. Because there's things that a presence sensor senses that just get kind of nuts. Like metal, for instance, in the basement. And it can't see around things especially that if there's a metal thing in the way or a concrete thing in the way. And presence sensors are they're kind of pricey right now, so you could have like 3 or 4 of them, but really you want to be able to space them out just enough because you don't want to buy a whole bunch of them. That's for sure. So they are inexpensive, but they are expensive in the same. At least if you make them anyway. If you make them, they're inexpensive, but if you buy them, they're pretty expensive. Alright, so enough of this. Let's look at an automation in this laundry room where that occurs and how to set that up. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is set up a timer. The timer actually lives inside your configuration file. So on your configuration file, you put the following: timer, and I have 2 zones in my area. Okay, so there's one by the laundry room. I'm calling that washer lights. Okay, I can call it laundry lights, it doesn't really matter. Or in the back area, there's back lab. So that way that it doesn't trigger the whole basement area that way. Okay, so that's why it's hooked up into 2 different zones. So I need to add this to my configuration file first, and you can set this for 13 minutes, you can set it for 3 minutes, it doesn't really matter. Okay, the next thing that needs to happen is you're going to restart after you do this, and it's going to show up as an entity. Okay, it's going to show up under settings, devices, entity, and if you type in timer, there's your timers. And if you go in here, you're going to put these on the area they go in. So in other words, this laundry area, notice I haven't dictated the area yet. Okay, so I'm going to set that now. That's in the laundry area, and this is in the electroforming area. Cool. Doesn't have to be done, but it's good that you do that. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to have to trigger this timer to go on. We're still going to use the presence sensor to mainly shut everything down if there's nobody there, but the timer is going to be somewhat the one in charge until there is no human in the room. Okay, so next thing we do is we go into automations. So I have my laundry lights on. Okay, so how this works is we have a device in the laundry area. It's a PIR sensor, and it's in starting detecting. So you can see that this sensor has many sensors on it. It's like a super sensor. It has detection, humidity, temperature. So it's a sensor that I built in ESP Home. I'm going to get into a chapter called building sensors. So I'll show you how to build sensors that do not take up a lot of room on your internet or network, because they are not taking up a separate IP address per sensor. They are sensors that you build called multi-sensors, and they can sense a lot of different things in a room. Okay, in this case I have temperature, humidity, PIR, and there's a couple other things that thing does, but we'll get into that later. Okay, so your trigger is going to be the PIR sensor that's in the room. Passive infrared sensor, motion detector. Okay, it's going to turn on a light. Okay, the light is just a standard light. And this light, since it's hooked up to a relay, it says off. But this is a very special light. Okay, this is one I made for emergencies, just in case everything else fails. So off is on with this light. Okay, off is on with this light. This is a normally on light. It's called. So off is on. Confused yet? Okay, just know off is on. Okay, good. Alright, so when it does turn off, which is on, it's going to set a timer. Okay, and actually I don't need this one right here, so there we go. I just need the entity. So the target is timer start. You just use a service called timer start. And then you look for laundry light on. You can just choose the entity and you can see that laundry light on. So there's only 2 timers on the network. But you have to set the duration to 0. Okay, because it starts at 0. Cool. We've started a timer. Okay, cool. How did the lights go off? Actually, I'm going to stay and save that. I wanted to save that a little bit right there. So how does the lights turn off? Well, okay, there's a couple things here, and I'm going to change one. So laundry lights off. So it's going to trigger based upon an event. And the event, it's got an event type. So if you went trigger event, okay, you'll get this. And the event type is going to be called timer finished. Timer dot finished. And then you need your entity ID timer washer lights. How do you get that? Well, glad you asked. So if you go into your devices and entities and you search out timer, here's my laundry light timer. You go to settings, and there's my entity ID. Okay, cool. That's how you get it. So now you go back to automations, you go to timer laundry off, and then I can mansplain the rest of this. Okay, we got entity ID, timer, washer lights. I don't have a specific user set up for triggering that light because that would be weird. Alright, so in this case, again, off is on is off. So it's going to trigger that light off, which is on. I should have just picked a different light bulb, right? But I can't because it's a very specific light bulb for this area. Now, let's set a condition. Okay, we're going to set a condition. This will not work unless something happens. We're going to go device, and I'm going to look for my present sensor. In this case, the laundry room one. And I'm going to say that it must be a human not present in order for this to work. Cool. Then it'll turn off the lights. Now, if you're going to do this, you have to know that a presence sensor has a delay. Okay? My presence sensor has a delay of like 10 minutes. It's a really good one too, but it still has a delay of 10 minutes. So that's why it's set to 13 minutes. Okay. So I would highly suggest, if you have a presence sensor, you find out the delay and then set the timer to be a little bit beyond that delay. Cool. So let's save that out. And there we go. Now, how do we see that is working? You know what I mean? Like, I could go down there right now and turn on the lights, and then I'll wait a few minutes and make sure they turn off. But really, what would be nice is having something that was on my phone to show that. That way, when I walk down there, I could see that it's going off and going on. So that's what a card is. So in the laundry room area, I have this little card. It shows that what is being triggered. If I walk down there, it'll show that, aha, the PIR sensor gets triggered. And then it's going to go and launch the automation. The automation called laundry lights on should activate. This is to show that these automations are able to activate. Not that they're on, but they are able to be on. Okay, in this case, it's going to trigger this to be a timer for 13 minutes. Cool. And it also should show me there, down there. Okay, so all these things have to be true. So how I made this, how I got this little card, is very easy. One, you could just steal it from the automations. That's one way to do it. Another thing is, let's say I just edit dashboard, I'll make a new card, which is right there. So it's called entities. And I can just delete all these out. Generally what I do is I'll launch a new window and go 10 like that. Launch another instance of Home Assistant where I can set up the entity and now look it up in the other window. So what I'm looking up here is in my automations, I have these lights on, lights off, lights on. So if I go to the three dots, I can go to information. Sorry, my camera's in the way here. And then under settings, I can see my automation entity ID. So I can copy this entity ID. This is laundry lights on, and I can put that as an entity. And I bet the other one's called off, right? There we go. So that's how I got those. What about the timer? Well, the timer lives in settings, devices, entities, timer, and laundry lights on, and then I get my entity ID. Then I can copy that and put that down here. What about my switch, right? Well, my switch, that lives under device and entities, and that is called something, laundry light LED, And you notice it says switch dot laundry. So that's a good way to tell what an entity is. Could be a lamp or whatever, but and if I hit enter, I think it. Yeah. Let's see what we got here. What's a better way to do this? Switch, maybe? There we go. So if I type in switch, I get this one. There we go. Cool. And I could put the passive infrared sensor in there, or the presence sensor in there if I wanted to. A better way to do that is make a separate card for that one. That one's located as an ESP home. Basement middle. It has two entities, one device, and then I could just add this to a dashboard and add it to the laundry room. I like doing that because it has the motion and this. By the way, since it has a motion detector, couldn't I just use the motion detector to turn on the light? No. The PIR is way faster than the presence sensor. So don't do that. It gets an odd delay. Alright, so I don't want to hit save because I already have this card, but that's how I made that card. Okay, so last but not least, again, I don't want to run down there and do it. I'm kind of lazy. And not really. But there is a way to trigger this. So on this one, if you go into settings and go to automation, you can go to laundry lights on and then run this. Yeah, there we go. Run that. Okay, sweet. So did it work? Yes. I hit run. Now in 13 minutes. So the light is technically on because this is off. So right now the light is on. Is it ever going to shut off? Yeah, it will because there's no human in the basement. See, it's away. So there's no human here. Now if I was to go down there, it would reset this timer to be 13 minutes. Every time I move around, 13 minutes. Every time I move around, 13 minutes. 13 minutes. It keeps doing it over and over again. And since I'm down there, it'll be present. Or wherever the other thing is. Not away, but home, I think it is. So it has to have all those into alignment before it'll turn the lights off. That way I could stay there forever if I wanted to, and it will just keep resetting the timer and never go off because of this condition. Cool. It works. Good times. But other than that, that is how you set up an area to be lit. As long as you're in that room, it'll stay lit. The timer is kind of a backup unit, so that if that presence sensor doesn't work, at least you have the PIR being activated, and the PIR or the timer is going to be in control for a set amount of time. And then after that, it's going to, a robot's going to say, hey, well, 13 minutes are up. Is there anybody in here? Okay, let's turn off the lights. So I hope you enjoyed the automation. Have a good one.